Hi everyone, this is Purnima here from Owtofbox, and if you've joined our channel now, you must have a kit with you, which is our DIY kit from ancient Egypt. So the first step is to set aside the material that we will need for part 1 of the kit, which is your 500 grams of air clay. This is the brand that typically you should have. Any other brand of air clay is fine. Uh, your rolling pins, you should have two sets of these, one which is wider and heavier and one which is thinner. These are acrylic rolling pins. You should also have three sets of cutting tools, some with sharp edges so that you can cut neat, and some of them for using them at the edges. So I'll tell you which ones to use when. You should also have these sticks are your guides so that your clay does not actually move, and you don't have to roll out too much or too thin. So this also maintains the thickness of the whole clay. Then you should also have your stencils. So ideally you should set all these aside because you're going to use them right now. So the base stencil and the main stencil is what we're going to start off with first. Set up your base sheet. I have a plastic sheet with me. Just open that out, and let's start. For now, you can put the brushes away. You would not be using them. You would also not use the paint palettes and the paints. Now let's start making the top part of the kit, which is the stenciling portion of the kit with the detailing on it. For this, we will first start with using the stencil that we have in hand. This is the keep the detail stencil beside you because you'll need this once the clay has been rolled out. Okay, to start off, step one, let's first decide how we want to fix our guides. So I have these two guides. I have some double side tape, normal tape would also do. So I'm doing it on the floor so that there's some contrast so you can see better. I mean, not on the floor, on the table, so you can see better, but you are more than welcome to use that plastic sheet that you have with you. So just make sure that the table is clean, or your working space is clean so that you don't have any hindrances. Now I have set this distance. So now let's start rolling out our clay. I have about 250 grams of clay here, and the guide will help us keep the clay within this space. So I'm rolling out the clay in this, and the guide sort of help them stay within that space. And then we need this to be the length of the base stencil, and I'll show you why in a minute. Try not to add water. The clay might seem little tight, but that's a good thing for us because very watery clay means that it will be hard for the details to come out well. And when we're casting the stencil, we want as much detail to sort of come off, and it does it best when there is almost no water on it. Okay, it's almost covered it. Just Now let's keep whatever clay we have aside so that we can use it later when we're making the side walls. We need all this clay, so whatever I can get, I'm going to keep it aside. I'm going to remove the guides now, so I don't need them. I got the shape and the thickness that I want. I'm going to put down my stencil, and then I'm going to roll this out first. My clay was fairly dry, so I didn't have it sticking everywhere. But if yours doesn't end up being, make sure that this is clean, or you can alternately use this one. And the idea is to sort of roll in first in one direction to make sure the impression comes out completely. And you can see in this that the impressions are sort of sticking out, and we want that. So press down and in one direction pull. The reason why we're not cutting it out first is because when we are flattening it out with the stencil, the shape changes a little bit, and we want to try and keep the same shape. So you saw that it extended out there. Okay, beautifully we got the full stencil in every part of it. Now I'm just gonna gently pull this out, just lifting off from that clay, and you can see the beautiful shape that's come out from it. Now that you have got the tracing, put the stencil down gently on it, just to sort of see where you need to cut it out. And first just make a marking. Don't need to put it too deep. It's sort of like putting a pen and drawing an outline of the shape. That's all you need. So don't press on it heavily. Okay, I'm going to remove this stencil. Got the shape that I need, and now I want to get a the flat end of this tool and sort of push it down straight. And basically, you want to remove all the excess. So the line you just drew, I'm pushing down into it, and you can do this segment by segment. You don't have to do it all in one go and pull it out. Um, because I don't have a plastic sheet under this, I have to lift this off. But ideally, if you have the plastic sheet, you can sort of move it around with that. The reason why you don't want to do this is that sometimes it tends to stick to the base, and lifting it can cause cracks and things like that if you have not taken enough clay, if your clay is too wet, if it's too dry, and things like that. So this is not an ideal situation. But you can see in this cross section, more or less, it's the same thickness, and which is what we want. And we can take a little bit of water and just smoothen the edges if we need. And I'm setting this aside for now. And now let's start with the bottom of the kit, which is going to be the base stencil that you're going to be using, as well as making the side walls. Okay, I'm just testing this and seeing how much more I need. So most of it is covered, just a little bit there. So I'm going to get some clay and fill that space out. And just sort of getting them to be one layer. Okay, I'm sure this is more than enough. Going to place my stencil in now, and they're using something like this will help. I'm just adding a little bit of water, I don't need to. And you know how you kids, you use your pencil and draw outlines of shapes? It's the same thing. You don't have to push it all the way through. The first thing you do is to just mark out the outline. And if you're not just comfortable with this tool, you can either take a pencil, just the nib alone of the pencil you need to put in, pull inside the clay, not the whole thing. Now I'm going to take the stencil out. There, you can see the marking that's there around. Now, let's take off the guides because we don't need the guides right now anymore. Keep the guides aside because you will need to use them again. And in fact, if you can, if sturdy enough, you can keep the double side tape in the same place. Or remove it, doesn't really matter. You can always use. So now you carve out the shape, press down into the mold, and similar like you would do for Play-Doh or anything else, you push in and then take that out. Keep that aside because you're going to need that clay for the side walls. Okay, I'm going to roll this and keep for now because I want to use this later for my side walls. So I'm just setting this aside for now. So you have with you double side sheet tape already stuck, and so I'm going to just use that and stick these rails back. I'm just going to check my stencil to make sure that I have enough plaster to roll. Actually, I put the backing sheet now just so that you can see it. Also, it makes it easier to lift the object if the backing sheet is on there, so that kind of helps. And clean this before you start rolling it out, because all the plaster is going to give you an uneven surface. So I have my rolling pin cleaned out, and so I'm going to roll this plaster out again. And this time we're making the base mold or stencil. And remember, I've kept this, so if ever I need it, I will use that plaster as well. And say you were tired, you want to go to bed, you're not so enthusiastic about finishing this detail, then just take everything, use a damp cloth or a plastic bag even, cover it, and yeah, you should be able to leave it for the night and then get on with your project whenever. And if you do find it developing cracks like that, you can just at your fingertips. Again, I'm going to stress, don't overdo it with water. I know children love to play with water, and so then it becomes a more water project, and then you wonder why your detail didn't really come out well. And really, it just has to do with the amount of water. It doesn't need a lot of water. Okay, putting it on this base is good because now it's sturdy enough that if I need to, I can sort of move it around and not worry. Say, from the dining table, your mom is like, clear the dining table, kiddos, we need to have sit down for dinner. At least you don't have to worry about where you need to move your artwork. You can move it to your study desk and leave it there overnight. So now that we've done with this, I am just gonna, also with the plastic sheet at the bottom, I think it helps, though it helps because it doesn't absorb the moisture that's there, um, otherwise. So now I'm going to take these, I'm going to make them into smaller rolls. I know they feel tight, but you don't have, if you need water, again I'm saying, don't worry about those. Just use your fingertips and just dip into some water. Don't make it all watery and then struggle with it later, because letting it dry out means you have to be patient with yourself and the clay. So I'm going to roll them into thin, what are these? hoop shapes. That's what my son likes to call it. And I'm going to roll this out a little bit. So this the third stencil that we had, which is this one. I'm going to use that because I want that thickness for the wall, so that I have equal thickness on all sides. Move that a little bit here. So try to not make it, this time you don't really need to use guides. Well, you could use the guides and do it, but keeping the distance would be hard. So I prefer just doing it without the guides. Just be careful, don't make the ridge like I just did on that detail. Uh, so yeah, you can just do them in sections and attach them versus having one long strip that you can't manage. And the same lines that you drew earlier with the stencil, do the same thing on this one as well. At least beside me. Now, the thing that you need to do for this is they have to attach together. So this is going to be a vertical wall standing up. So you want to take, you can take this tool. You're going to first take a little bit of water. Again, like literally you can see it's only a dot on my fingertip. And you're just going to sort of brush it along the edges of the lower base panel. Okay, and once that's done, this is called scoring. So it's just to help add some grip. So you can put dots if you want to, just scratch marks. The other thing you can do is also make it into a paste and keep if you need, sort of brush it. The other thing, I mean, you could use the brush instead of your fingertip if you don't want to use your fingertip. But at this point, I think with your hands dirty, go ahead with the fingertip. So now I removed that. So the reason we used a stencil is because the sides of the box have to be the same height so that it's not all open niche types. So now I have this, I'm gonna try and fix it. So it's on that line and I'm just trying to sort of gently press it down. If it's not too thin, it should stay without really falling off. If you've rolled it too thin, I would suggest you roll it once more. So let's go a little higher. I should have. Okay. So this will actually more or less stand as is, but we don't want to leave it like that because it tends to sort of splay if you see. Once we build it on all four sides, it will be more sturdy. But what you should do is that you sort of roll, take a little bit of plaster. Again, where's that brush that I had? So I'm just going to use a brush versus my finger because the brush can sort of get into those cracks a bit. Don't, again, it's just the tip of the brush that has water. I'm not pouring water onto it. And this can be in small pieces, it doesn't really matter. It's just going to act as an attachment piece to give strength. Okay. You can use any one of these tools. I like this one because it helps me sort of push it down. So I'm pushing it, if you can see, I'm pushing it flat onto this wall, and I have my hand at the as a support here. And while I'm doing that, I'm also lifting this a little bit onto this wall. And you don't have to worry, you don't have to get every bit of it onto it. It's just that it just acts as a stronger, and if I need, I just use water at the tip. Okay, so now we continue, go on building the rest of the walls on all sides. So the same process continues. Okay, so if you see this, these two are not joined. So I'm taking water again and taking one of the pieces. So everything is just with air clay and just flattening out. There are different techniques. If you see different videos, different people will have different techniques. This is just something that I do. Um, Same thing, use a brush and just put some water on the inside and outside. I'm flattening this out as much as I can just to sort of get it on both sides and sort of sandwich it a little bit. Yes, it is flimsy and moving, so some amount of dexterity matters.